what you're here for and what you want to get out of it, rather than me telling you something that you may not want to hear. Since you've all paid money to come here, or yes, anyway.
Except me. So.
And anyway, you're investing.
I'm here because you told me to come down.
Okay. But not only what you want to get out of it, but what you want to give to it. By that I mean you've got certain experiences and skills. And what we're basically talking about is how a group of people can get together to produce public access programming for their particular ends in mind. So if you have any experience in that, or you have some questions about how to go about doing it, or everybody has got some skills. And whether it has to do with video, one of the things I think when the more you get into video production, you find the less important devices like that are. The person behind it is very important, but the device itself is relatively incidental. That has very little to do with production. Production has to do with who you are, what you want to accomplish, and your skills as a human being. And, you've all acquired that, or you wouldn't be here. And so what you have to offer to a production really is more dependent upon the kind of person you are than your ability to push the right button and your buttons in sequence. That's if you can't learn that, then you probably wouldn't be here anyway to be able to survive. That basic skill. So why don't you introduce what you sort of want out of it and what you've got to offer?
Well, as a board member of MCAP, the thing that I'm personally most interested in is involving other groups. I'm very interested in the senior citizens, which is why I got you to call Doug Harris, and their groups. I'm making an attempt to get a person from the Hmong community into a job training thing that the state pays for and gives our very small staff 8 weeks of help. I've been trying to reach out to various groups. There's also a new organization called the Missoula Activists for Disabled People, and I've tried to reach out to them, and I haven't been, beating on their doors, but I've heard so much about the success of your program that I want to learn about these hooks and how to invite people from all over the community into their facility.
I'm interested in how.
What's your name? I can't
My name is Joan Secret Ryman. I'm interested in how nonprofits can use something like a community access TV station to promote their various causes. And I got to the conference late. I thought this was going to be like a video or a case study.
Well, they will be. We'll use that as the
basis.
basis.
How other groups have done what they've done.
No, that information.
And I have been an MCAT volunteer in filming a benefit concert for Food Bank, and which they then broadcast on, or cablecast rather, on MCAT.
What do you do besides?
I'm a student in public administration right now. So I hope to get some kind of working for a nonprofit and helping them achieve their goals, and hopefully using MCAT.
And your name again?
My name is Joan Christopherson, and I am a past member of the board of the Area Agency on Aging. And so I come from that kind of interest, but I do think that that's been a blind spot for MCAT. MCAT in Missoula has tended to be reactive rather than proactive of necessity as we're getting started. And we haven't heard from the senior community really at all in terms of their wanting to use MCAT for their purposes. So that I think is something that as a board member now of MCAT, I should be more concerned about. We are very fortunate that recent new member is the director of RSVP in Missoula, and I think we're going to get some coming together on this.
Oh, good.
I'm an American. I'm from Bozeman, and I'm real interested to hear the history of the case study from the inception of an idea and getting money and actually instituting this whole program, and what the details are of the programs that we've been.
You want to introduce yourself?
I'm Alice Campbell, and I'm glad to see that we've got MCAT because it is getting, the city council has their meetings every Monday night now, and we get to hear them on TV, or watch them on TV. And I think that they have been doing a good job in getting the community involved and making the people more aware of what all there is to do in the community. And I'm active in the peace movement, and I'm also active in the Montana Senior Citizens Association.
I'm Doug Campbell. I'm president of the Montana Senior Citizens Association. I went down and took the early training when MCAT first got started. I've probably forgotten all I learned. But, I am interested in it because I think it is a way to get things before the public that you're not going to get over conventional TV or news media of most any kind. So it does give you a chance to have a voice. Ray was instrumental in setting up the program for Dr. Hennessy and I earlier last summer, where we did a deal on national health care. I thought it went pretty well, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
It's good
I thought it was.
Okay, well, I got easy way to introduce myself.
No, I'm fine. It's something you did. Portland.
Hello and welcome to Agewise. I'm Tom Taylor. I'll be your host for today's program. And a special program it is. It's Agewise's 100th program. That's right, we've done 100 programs since we started. I'd like to take you on a short tour today to show you what the Agewise volunteers have done and some of the accomplishments and excitement we've had in doing it.
I want you to meet the Agewise group. Holy smoke! Who are all these people? This is Agewise.
First off, I'd like to introduce you to this wonderful mix of retired men and women who have produced Agewise. These are individuals who have together learned video production, who have worked together, who have played together, and who have together produced this outstanding and valuable series of programs. I like Agewise because it gives me a chance to play with video, and I love video. It's more fun than anything I can think of doing. You've got wonderful toys to play with, you've got good people to work with, wonderful people to work with. You get a chance to get involved with people, and get a chance to go places and do things and become a part of events that you can't do in ordinary life. So become extraordinary and join Agewise.
Twice a month, it's lights, camera, action. Won't you join us in the fun?
Agewise wouldn't exist except for public access cable television. Although we have our own production equipment, we need public access for studio production and the mobile production bands. We use the Tualatin Valley Community Access Band to shoot this special legislative report in Salem. value to us is the access channels themselves. They enable us to send our programs into the homes of cable subscribers throughout the state. So thanks, Multnomah Community Television, Rose City TV, and especially Portland Cable Access. Agewise is the result of a combination of seniors and public access cable television, and a powerful combination it is. It enables us to provide video production for not-for-profit agencies and organizations at a cost they can afford, so that they can use video in their information programs. It enables us to be the video arm of the Oregon State Council of Senior Citizens, our sponsoring organization, and by extension, we have become the video arm of the whole senior community. And it enables us to use the power of video to show the marvelous variety of senior life, the creativity of the older population, and the value of the contribution of seniors to the quality of life of our communities. We know that we are a leader and a model for a national movement. Seniors all across the nation are using public access facilities to produce programs similar to Agewise.
Deep Dish is a group of community television advocates that wanted to utilize satellite technology to disseminate community television on a national basis by satellites. And Portland, Oregon, and specifically Agewise, is the producing group for this program on aging.
The rest of the program will be a series of clips from our first 100 programs. Here is one we produced for the Metropolitan Family Services on their foster grandparents program.
It's a good program that I'm in right now. It's a foster grandparent program. I think it's the best thing that I've ever done.
So that introduces the topic. And let me, a couple of just additional observations. One is that Agewise was started up with a grant from the Fred Meyer Foundation, which is now the Meyer Charitable Trust. They gave us $160,000 with the idea that we could find out if access programs produced by seniors that have to be over 60 to be on the crew could contribute to the independent living of seniors. And we did it by producing programming about the organizations, the agencies, and the activities that could contribute to senior independence. And the grant resulted in our book, which is the case study. It details all that really goes into production except how to operate cameras and do the editing and all of that minor stuff. It's really about the management of production. And for people like you to get your group together, go through this process and start producing programs like that. And that's the result of this book is basically not necessarily for seniors, it's for any nonprofit people in management or for access centers to use in their outreach. When you go to a group of people and say, why don't you do public access, because do all these wonderful things. And they say, huh, what does that mean? What do I have to do? Well, you can give them this book. And if it doesn't frighten them away, they might go on to the next step. Because it answers the kind of questions that a manager should be asking before they embark on investing their resources, time, and energy into the production of that program. Acquiring, recruiting volunteers, training volunteers, working with your access center, all of those kinds of things that have to be done in order to make the program work. And so that's basically what we did. Well, we found out it did work because the funding ended almost 3 years ago, and we've been on our own ever since. And we continue to operate. We have enough revenue that we generate from small contracts by doing productions for various groups, like we did a tape for the Senior and Disabled Services Division, which is the Oregon government agency. They have a governor's conference on aging in which they set the legislative agenda for the senior community. And so we produced a tape about that, and they get money to do it. And we do things like that. We're currently subcontracting to produce a series of 10 one-hour training tapes on supervision in long-term care, where we'll get revenue from that. We do other things like that. Again, the kind of productions that no commercial producer would even think of doing because the budgets are so low. But on the other hand, it brings us enough to pay the rent and the phone and keep the equipment operating.
And pay staff?
No, well, now we have a half-time paid staff. It's been all volunteer though for the last 4 years. But for the last month, we've had a half-time paid staff. Linda Crossen, who was initially part of the project.
Well, does that mean that you've been leaning on staff of the parent
No,
agency?
no. No, we have been our own staff, all volunteers. And, you know, we can keep it going. We produce a half-hour program every other week. Some of it's reruns, maybe 25% we repeat a segment that we've done or a program we've done a year or so ago. Now that we are self-supporting, we do whatever we damn please. Because nobody pays us, and so we're doing it on our own, so we might as well do what we want. And that's a significant element of it. But the group that started out originally, I would say there's about 2/3 of them are still active. You know, this is 4 years.
Then do you have a governing body of some kind?
Yes, we have our own executive council, but anybody in the group can sit on it. A few people have been willing to volunteer to attend meetings on a pretty regular basis and have done, and they make the decisions. They decide what we're going to do, how we're going to spend the money we have, and those decisions are done by this group.
And they have volunteered themselves into being an executive council?
That's right. They're all producing members. We don't have any, in a sense, outsiders in that executive council. It's all working members during the group.
How did you originally recruit your people?
With a rather extensive campaign of, we tried a lot of different things, and we go into it in the book, but we tried flyers to senior centers, and we did, got radio PSAs, we got some mention in the access centers, and we found that the best way was the community college had a video class, and there were some seniors that had taken that class, and that became a major thing. Then we did get, through general publicity, we got small pieces in Oregonian and other things. We got a few people, and so we got some initial people to get started. Then our visibility, when we would go around and shoot, we would, what are you doing and who are you, and find out, and we picked up some people there. After the first, say, 6 months, we ceased doing any active recruiting because we had enough people, and it was sort of word of mouth and friends that have been the major source of recruits. And I think we're in a plateau now. There's a certain amount of turnover. People decide they want to do something else, which is quite appropriate. And new people seem to come out of wherever they come out of. And in some ways, our dilemma is, how do we keep the group that we have together and active? You know, a half hour every other week is in some ways a lot of work, but it doesn't involve necessarily a lot of people. So we've got, I think, a hardcore group of around 10 to 15. And video is a skill that you need to learn and practice. It's a very simple one, I think, but it needs constant practice. As you say, you took that, you've forgotten most everything you learned. That's inevitable. But if you were on a regular every week or every couple of weeks, went out and did some shooting, then you would not only keep remembering it, but you would gradually expand your skill. And we haven't found, I think, a successful way of keeping the whole group involved. There's some people that just come in and they do it. They keep themselves very busy and very involved. Other people sort of wait until they're asked, and then they'll come in and work. And to try and find a balance between keeping the whole group involved and yet not putting too much load on anybody so they burn out is, we're still playing around with that. I don't know if there is any pat answer to how to solve that dilemma. It's just play everything by ear and try and get to know the people that are working with you and what you can ask for and what you better sit down and shut up. get
Where
out of
did
the way.
your initial trained crew come from?
Well, Linda and myself were the initial staff, and we started out pretty much about 1.5 times.
And you were
And
self-trained,
both
or
of us,
did you attend
both
a
of us
workshop?
had extensive background in production. And so when we got an initial group of maybe 10 or 12, the first thing we did was go through the Portland Cable Access Basic Training Program
As a group?
as a group. And that got us together. Then we instituted our own classes because I think as in most access centers, they teach you about how to push the buttons, but nothing else. And so we started up our own production classes and took it beyond that step, but we also basically, on an apprentice kind of thing, Melinda and I would go out shooting and we'd follow along and say, hey, now you operate the deck. I don't know how, we'll push this button.
Now, were these open to under 60s, or did you
No, it
really
was not
try to
at first.
segregate?
No, we're still pretty much, haven't insisted on that. That was part of the conditions of the grant. But we haven't, found one guy lied about it at least. But we haven't insisted on that since, but I think in some ways, like most groups, it's self-selecting. And we have opened up and we've got some younger volunteers now that are helping us, particularly on editing. I think totally, or not totally unsuccessful, but reasonably unsuccessful in getting people enthusiastic about editing. There are several people, 3 or 4 only out of the group, that have really dug in on editing and it requires some good skills on it.
Doug,
But-
were there many underage people in class when you took it? I'm not aware of our taking into our classes very many people over 60 as such.
You do need to do some recruiting and get it. You know, as I say, the thing that really got us together was that class. One of the things that I think is unique about us, we do very little studio production. Most all of it is single camera location production, which is a harder, more time-consuming process. It's pretty easy to go into a studio and sit people on chairs and they talk for half an hour and then go home. But to lug the equipment out and light it and mic it and tape it and then take it back and edit it, that does add to the production problems. But I find that it does keep people more involved because it's a hell of a lot more exciting to do. When you go in the studio and you fall asleep behind the camera when somebody's talking, it's not the kind of challenge and you don't feel like you're involved as much as when you go out.
And it's better for the viewer.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Just lining people up around the table gets.
Well, imagine when they're a part of it, the editing and everything, and then see a fairly successful production come out of it, it probably keeps their enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Too.
That's the thing that keeps the group together. But one of the things that I find, it was interesting, we had a pretty large group meeting one time and asked people around, why are you doing this? And we went around the room and not one person said they were doing it because they like video. Not one, which was, I think in some ways, one of the best things I found out about it is that people do it because they found that there's a group of people they like to work with and they like to work on video. But, well, if you were in the session about the art of video, you could see the one Patty Leahy showed. She was just in love with video images.
Yeah.
It was just, that really comes through, and that's a strong motivation, and that was sort of what I thought everybody would be that way, but they weren't. And it leads me to think about how, when you're asking how to get involved with nonprofits, if you come on strong on video, it's going to scare a lot of people away because, for one, the equipment for some reason intimidates people. Like sewing machines intimidate me, cameras intimidate people. And the production process, when you go into a studio and they take you through the control room and all this orientation, and they're talking about buses and all of that stuff, and which, you know, is, wow, you know, it's overwhelming, and I think it tends to throw people away from it. But if you just took your little camcorder out, put it in, shoot it, you become more involved with the production process, and then the studio doesn't become so intimidating when you get there. Thing, I think, along this line, another approach is that one of the things that I found, besides people not liking video, they like to work together. And to finish that thought, they do get a great sense of accomplishment. That when the tape is on the air, when people talk about being on camera and they're walking around town and say, "Oh yeah, I saw you last night," and that gives you a kick. But people now, when we go out, "Oh, you're with Agewise," we're known, and that kind of accomplishment is very rewarding. And then when you see a finished tape and you work on it, that's a good reward. But to go on, the whole idea of particularly with seniors who don't have to do anything they don't want to. If it's not enjoyable, nobody's going to stick around. And one of the things that keeps us together is we have a lot of good parties. You saw we instituted a regular St. Patrick's Day party. Go down to the St. Patrick's pub and drink some beer and sing and music and have a good time. And then other kinds of parties throughout the year. Because that's what gives us this sense of group cohesion. And that when you're recruiting for your organization or when you're working with nonprofits, make sure that they don't ignore that. Because that's, I think, one of the more important things. And I know access centers, some, I don't know how you do it, but whether you have regular parties to bring people together and recognition evenings when everybody gets awards. That I think is an important part of building a group and making sure that nobody's left out of the group. We had some minor internal problems at one time that resulted in us in developing a statement of principles, and that basically that every Agewise activity is totally open to every member. That anybody that wants to be in any shoot is acceptable in that shoot and encouraged to attend. There is no exclusion. There was an incident where some people didn't want somebody to be in a group. It was an irony of it. It was a Christmas program, and they were singing carols, and they didn't want this person. Didn't
brings
like
out
her
the worst.
voice was. And that led to some minor furors, but we survived it, and perhaps are stronger for it because we got rid of some people that didn't want to play that way. That's, I think, one of the things that you, in any group working with, you've got to be more sensitive to the interpersonal relations of the group than you do to whether the camera's straight or not. That's far more important.
That brings up a point, like, I mean, I've worked with video, and yet having this guy point the camera at me is a little intimidating, and I wonder if, you can, like, work with a tripod and have someone seated and have the, just to have somebody at a lower height and not towering over people.
Well, I think that's good video technique to begin with. The whole thing, when we talk to one another, we talk down to somebody, or you talk up to somebody, or you talk eye to eye. And the video camera is a member of this conversation, and he's talking down to us. It's not your fault.
Lower the camera.
But that's part of the sensitivity, I think, that a video crew should develop. Is, like you, I found when I was teaching in production, when tall people would set up the tripod, the camera was here. When short people was down here. And the rule of thumb is if it's comfortable for the cameraman, it's the wrong angle. But there again, that's part of the things that a good producer, filmmaker, video maker learns. And again, it's not having to do with the buttons on the camera in essence. It's your sensitivity as a human being and your ability to see and think about the implications of what you're doing. And that whole thing about keeping people at ease in front of the camera, that's far more critical than somebody's skill. Again, I'm using the word button pushing, but that's all too often the camera operator thinks of that job as only button pushing, rather than consciously or unconsciously, when you're in a conversation, you adjust yourself to the way you're talking and the feedback you're getting. And most camera operators don't do that. They point the camera, they don't think about the implications of the angle or the height, or the unfortunate thing, because you've got a zoom, you should zoom so the camera's going in and out like this. Try talking to somebody when they're going like this. You just can't do it. Am I talking about the things that are meaning to you, or?
Well, I would like to ask you about when you, and I should give this back. That's really great. Good interview. Was one of your main motivations for the grant money to buy your own equipment?
No.
Do you think that without your own equipment and just with the public access facility, you would be as
I don't think we
successful?
could have anywhere near done the 2 one-hour programs a month without our own editing facility and without our own camera, because.
But we're talking Portland here. This wouldn't necessarily be true of a smaller community like Missoula, would it?
No, it wouldn't necessarily be true. It is possible to do it in access. Depends upon how you would have to adjust your program to what's available. If you find you couldn't meet a new program half hour every other week, then you'd adjust accordingly. But there's no reason at all that it couldn't be done strictly with public access programming. There's another thing that I think, one of the things that we're different than, in some ways, a lot of access producers who, we are a unit ourselves. We're like a separate non-profit organization who's designed not to serve itself, but to serve the community. And that is a bit different than the more typical access producer that has their own, they're serving their own ends. I don't know, I think that makes a difference, and I'm not quite sure what it is, but it would mean that you would have to adjust the kind of organization you're doing. Like, if we were only doing programming for the Oregon State Council of Senior Citizens, I'm sure we'd be operating in quite a different way. I'm not sure what it would be, but I know it would be different.
Maybe more bureaucratic.
Not necessarily.
Possibly.
What is your relation, now there is an overall board, state board.
Well, there's the Oregon State Council of Senior Citizens.
Yeah.
We're
No,
called-
no, I mean, before we get to the senior citizens, who is it?
The
in-
Senior Community
in
Video
Oregon?
Project is this group of people that I've been talking about.
No.
We have our own executive board.
No, who's the public access board in Oregon or in Portland?
In Portland, it's split up into 7 different access systems.
Yeah,
And we are not tied into any one of them. We're totally independent.
and are they related to each other?
No. Each one has a separate franchise agreement with their political jurisdiction and separate ownership, although a couple of them are owned by the same umbrella company, Paragon.
So whose lines are you broadcasting?
We make use of all of the public access systems in the Portland area and 4 other cities in Oregon now.
Mhm.
But we are an independent producer in the same sense. Well, not in the same sense, but similar to the Race and Reason producer, similar to any organization that brings its programming to access.
You have your own equipment, but you use their broadcast facility.
We use it, and we, as it said in the tape there, we don't have a facility, like we don't have a mobile van, but there are several mobile vans in access centers in Portland, and so we can use the one that we're certified on. We don't have our own character generator, so we use the character generator at one of the access centers. So we make use of them when needed, but we depend absolutely on their channel availability.
What did you do to buy your first equipment? Were you
That was out of the
borrowing?
grant. That was out of the grant.
Out of the grant.
Mhm.
And you came together first around the grant?
In some ways, yes. The initial thrust, frankly, was not having to do with seniors at all. It had to do with frustration I was feeling. There was a group of us that had a small independent company who wanted to do programming because public access there, we'd all been involved in NFLCP and access movement. And so we thought we would, obviously you just go to nonprofits and say, hire us and we'll produce programming for you. Kept getting turned down. And so the frustration, because they asked all these questions, well, what does it take from us? And we could talk them through through that, but we couldn't document it. Or what do we get out of it? Well, there's really very little documentation. There's surveys about the value of access. And so our initial umbrella organization was a group called the Center for Urban Education, and they had been very active in the public access franchising process in Portland, and so they knew about it and were interested in supporting it. So we went to there and said, let's develop a demonstration project on access where we can document what goes into it, what comes out of access productions. And agreed and looked around, and there was a category that Fred Meyer had to call senior independence, and said, it's us for us, and so we fortunately got it, and that started us out.
How long ago did you start?
87 is when we started operating.
Fred Meyer no longer gives grants to senior organizations, do they?
I don't know. I haven't gotten.
I think we have.
They changed their emphasis.
Yeah, we had a small
Yeah.
grant, or not too big grant from them 2 years ago, but then they said that they were no longer
Mhm.
granting to senior.
Yeah. Last time I tried for a grant, we got turned down, and it was a senior category, but they only wanted direct services. Videos and being an indirect service was not part of it.
But there are other grantors.
Yeah. And you don't need a lot of, if you've got an access center, I think it really helps to have some one or two people that are willing to, in a sense, be the core or the center of it, that can work with the group and keep it together, keep it focused, and keep it going.
Volunteers.
Yeah, it can be volunteers.
But
As I say,
specifically volunteers who are interested in the machinery. I mean, that's where I think,
Yeah, well,
it's very
again,
difficult. It's very difficult to get people, I mean, a lot of volunteers to answer the phone, there are a lot of volunteers to do things, but.
I think access centers are missing the boat when they keep talking about access as communication rather than recreation. That the city doesn't argue when we should have swimming pools. And people like to swim. Well, there's some people that like to operate cameras and do editing. And if the access centers thought of themselves as a recreational resource, they might do a better job of recruiting.
That's really interesting, yeah.
I don't know if it would, but that's, once, I think access is always on the borderline of extinction, but if they ever got established as well as swimming pools, or certainly we're more like the public library perhaps than a swimming pool. But in some ways it's, here's an analogy that, suppose all of a sudden, here's this city with roads on it but no cars, and all of a sudden somebody puts a car in front of your house and said it's yours. What do you do? You live in it? You put your chickens in it or something like that? Well, all of a sudden, there's a group of people that got an access center down there and it's yours. It's just, you can check out a studio the same way you go to the library and check out a book. But unfortunately, nobody's learned how to write yet. And so you have this tool that'll write video, but the school systems don't, for the most part, teach it. They're forced to learn how to read and write.
About
But we're not taught video.
like the colleges, is there a chance of getting some interns that could help teaching?
I would say that's theoretically possible. Unfortunately, my experience with, and having been a college teacher, people that teach video in college think that the only video exists in CBS City. And the mentality that comes out of most video production departments in the universities has absolutely, totally wrong for access. It's the arrogance in action.
I'd like to add something to that.
Please do.
I tried to get into a video for TV production class, and it's very hard if you're not a major. And I told them I was involved in this, and that was the wrong thing to say.
That's even worse. It's the worst thing you could have said, Tom.
They're kind of elitist, aren't they?
Yeah, and
Worse than that.
You're not establishment.
They're afraid too many people will get
Not
involved
welcome, huh?
and somehow they'll lose tuition.
unfortunately, the program like at Mount Hood, which as far as I heard, the only community-oriented production program in the country, and it's funded by, was recently funded by Rogers Cable. It was set up primarily to teach people to work in access centers. But that's, as far as I know, the only center that does that. And
Now that we bashed the colleges, what about the staff on the regular
at access
staffing
centers?
At access centers, not true of ours, but is it?
Actually, we've had wonderful relations with all the people that we've worked with. Very supportive and
A selling point to the general public too.
yeah, I think they're very good at that. Unfortunately, I think that part of the problem is that they're mostly understaffed to give the kind of help. If an organization, say like you started out of your own, say your peace group, and nobody knows how to do video, they could go through the access center, but without somebody that can spend a good bit of time to help you through until you've acquired that skill yourself, it's going to be very hard. And I don't know how many, you've got 2 people in the access center?
We have 2 positions, 3 people, one is a job share.
Uh-huh.
And the second staff member is only 30 hours a week.
So it's,
Yeah,
to
and
get the kind of help that
I
would
was there
really.
one afternoon,
Mhm.
and I was doing a little volunteer stint, and Randy was in that control room for most of the time that I was there, assisting one person who was willing enough to soak up everything that he could give her, but I was really distressed as a board member that our director was having to put all that amount of time with one person who should have been getting some other kind of, we need to have a volunteer corps or something.
Well, one of the groups that I haven't tried to hit yet, but we should, and there's an organization like ITVA, which is the Professional Video Makers. That there are people like in the Longview, Kelso area, there's a Pat Wilkins who was a newscaster in Portland, ABC station there, and he's moved to Kelso and retired, and boy, he and his wife are really active and they're producing wonderful access program. And see if we can tap into that community of retirees that have some basic video skill, convert them to, most people that work in commercial video lead a frustrating life because they never get to do what they want to do. And now Access offers the opportunity to have the tools to do what you want. And then I would further encourage Access people to look to the senior community because it's the one existing community in any community that has time during the day. They have the experience and the interest in making their communities work that other groups don't have. And they've got the skill to learn video. And that's, that's the qualities that every access manager is hungering for. And the thing that the seniors that do go into this find it is one of the most satisfying volunteer activities they can do because when you're doing video production, you're involved with all sorts of things. Whether you're taping rock concerts at city council or AAA meetings or whatever you choose to tape. I mean, you're out there and involved, and a camera is, I think, the most magic property of the camera. It gets you places. You can go through doors with a camera.
But Tom, I also have to stand up for the idea of studio productions because they're so efficient, especially, the live ones. They're so efficient. They don't require those hours and hours of
That's right.
editing in the, in the little claustrophobic rooms.
Well, those of us that like editing.
Would you talk a little more about the revenues that you've been able to?
Okay.
Yeah.
As I say, when the funding ran out, we still had a relationship with our initial sponsors, so they let us stay rent-free. So we didn't have any.
You did have a studio.
No, we didn't have a studio.
What?
We had just an office space and an editing room. So we were able to hang out rent-free. Members themselves kicked in some bucks to pay the telephone and the out-of-pocket expenses. we stayed rent-free for, 2 years or more. We had to move because they needed space, but we got another rent-free place in the church. And during that first year or so, we were supported basically out of the pockets of our members. They put a few bucks that we needed into it. It wasn't very much because we had everything. We even had tape stock, so we didn't have to buy any tape. And then we started getting some small contracts. And so I think last year last year we got a $10,000 grant from the Oregon Committee for Humanities, and then we got another $4,000 from a couple of hospitals to produce the series. And that funded us. Then we picked up some other, as I said, this SDSD contract. We've had a couple of contracts with them. We've produced some PSAs. Mark and his total generosity out of their huge budget gave us $150 to produce a public service fund. They're so generous. And so we've done a few minor contracts like that. We produced a tape for a care center that had different levels of care, and it was basically a straight sales tape for them. We couldn't use public access, but we have our own equipment, so we produced that, and for titles we went to a friend who has an Omega and paid him $50 to do the titles for it. So
You
we
charged for that?
Yeah, that was a straight production contract. And our volunteers worked on it, and in fact, instead of being paid, they donated what they would have been paid through Agewise. And then we've sold a few tapes, not many, but that brought in a few $100 from our productions. And we've gotten a couple of small grants, just basic, thanks a lot, from small foundations, about $4,000 from those. We haven't.
And you now have a half-time staff, you say?
This contract to produce the 10 hours would give us the money, and that hopefully will free me up to do more development and grant writing, to bring in more. I'd like to get paid. But that's, you can rattle on various stories about this, that, and the other thing, but what kind of information do you think would be useful to you in what you're trying to accomplish? What I'd like to see you do is start, I could send you some of our tapes and start showing them at your meetings and developing, say, hey, let's go down to MCAT and start doing some taping of our own.
And the Missoula Women for Peace as well.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking
Or
of-
see, one of the things you could work jointly, that you get a few people from each organization and they work on one another's production. And then you might find another organization that needs some help too, and you could grow that way.
Our Aging Services Office labored, it seems to me, for a year, I was on the board, to produce a slideshow that was okay. But the same kind of thing, you've got a slideshow, you have to have a slide projector, you have to have somebody to do it and all the rest of it, where a tape is so much more mobile.
We've done taping for AAAs in Oregon, and had trouble because not shooting the tape, but they never we say, we'll shoot the tape, but you have to help us in the editing because we don't know what you want to say. And they have never been able to free up staff to sit down and say, here's what we want to do. Although they have, on this Do Not Grow Gentle series, we sent a copy of each of the programs to the each of the AAA agencies in the state, and also it was played on each of the access centers, and in contacting them both by phone and correspondence, asked the two to get together and work with one another to promote the series and engage in discussions. And one in the Ashland-Medford area, the Access Center and the AAA really worked together well, and the Access Center played all 5 tapes in one afternoon, followed up by a 2-hour calling program with some of the leading access can do. We did get all of the access centers in Oregon, some 12 of them, to play the 5th tape, the summary tape, during the same week. And unfortunately, we couldn't get the paper that the State Library Oregonian to publicize it.
Where are these limited to Oregon?
Yeah.
Reason being is because they include clips from copyrighted films, and when we acquired the films, they wouldn't give us rights to use them beyond Oregon.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, it really
These-
is.
These are wonderful, they look
But
wonderful.
hearing that, we're going to go back to them again and
Yeah.
see if we can, and show them the tapes. They only have, a few minutes of the clips from them, and it wouldn't in
Oh,
any
just
way.
one of those rules that has to be.
I look forward to it, but I think they would be quite useful. The 5th tape doesn't have any clips, so that's available and can be used. But in some ways, because it summarizes all 5 of them, it doesn't, to me, have the kind of punch that the individual tapes do have. But hopefully we will be able to announce that
Oh,
available to
yeah.
other people.
Please let us know at MCAT, we'll get these done right away.
What if you remove that copyrighted material? Would it
Well,
compromise
because
the message?
see, the way it was done, the series was produced, we had a public forum held in our sponsoring hospitals, and we showed the film, and then the humanist who made the major address, their remarks referred to the film, and then the conversation discussion also referred to the film, so it would not mean just removing the clips, because what was said wouldn't make sense in most cases. That is an option to re-edit it. Because I think it would lose a lot of the guts of it. That's one of the reasons I think that perhaps this 5th tape is not as satisfying, although it really works for discussion. But it's, perhaps standing alone, on somebody just sitting down at home watching it, it might not work as well. But in a meeting, and a lot of the AAA's held special showings where they would invite their board members and others to come and see the tape and lead a discussion about how the stereotypes of aging do affect their work.
Was the study guide something that Agewise put out as well?
Yeah. Haven't finished yet. Well, it's basically a summary of some of the questions that are raised in that history. But we will publish that. And we'll be selling the series in Oregon for $100 for a set, which
Have you shown any of these in schools?
we haven't organized it. I hope that other people. I'm not sure, since we gave the tapes to the AAA agencies, what they're doing with them. I haven't followed up.
How appropriate, how age appropriate are they? Are they aimed, in terms of audience, are they aimed primarily at seniors, at the general public?
No, we tried to, they're aimed at seniors would be one of the audiences. We tried to invite to these discussions professionals that serve seniors, like staffs of AAA agencies or various other agencies and organizations that serve seniors. And employers too, because like the old joke, when you go into a restaurant, you're in trouble when the waiter talks to your son and says, "What does he want?" To sensitize employees, or one of the quotes in there was an employee relations director or something from one of the utilities, and said, "I want to use this to train staff so that people will not use the stereotypes in responding to seniors." So it was targeted to that, more people that more have direct relevance, direct contact with seniors, that perhaps is all too common that both seniors and everybody else has the stereotypes in mind, as any stereotype is rather than a stereotype.
Well, our aging services office, I know, occasionally gets asked for a speaker for a high school class on life cycles. I would think something like this would be extremely useful as a point of departure for discussion with class members.
I think it would be too.
But do you have any that are so
There is one tape that we used in there, it's called Bridging the Generations, which was specifically, and that's an available tape. It was produced by Jim Davis, who's, he was the executive director of the Oregon State Council of Senior Citizens. Resigned last year. I think that would be available at very low rental, or very low purchase price too. $50, sure, purchase. And it's it talks about some experiments or some classes in Maryland, because he made it when he was at the University of Maryland, about where teaching gerontology in high school. And there's a section that analyzes children's literature for its ageist content. There's some other things in it, but I can't remember right now. But that would not be limited to Oregon. That program could go out, because he would. It's not restricted to. I mean, he's the owner of the copyright. That's the third program, Bridging the Generations. Is there any question? Would you like to watch some more of the tape? And this is clips from the first 100 programs.
Agewise worked with Common Ground to produce a segment on the crisis in the family farm.
This was an auction.
If you repeat after me, common struggle,
Common struggle,
common food,
common food,
common ground,
common ground,
common God.
common God.
What shall we bring to the common ground?
What shall we bring to the common ground?
What shall we bring to this common God?
What shall we bring to this common God?
Do justice,
Do justice,
love kindness,
love kindness,
walk humbly,
walk humbly,
common struggle,
common struggle,
common food,
common food,
common ground,
common ground,
common God.
common God.
Amen.
Amen. Kay Boylan and Anna Oles produced several segments called Grandma's Corner. They were designed to give you an idea of what you can do with simple, available things you have around your house to make those visits with your grandchildren a true joy.
Does it get any smaller? No, and it never will again. It'll always be like that. Just playing in lukewarm water and splashing around in it with the hands seems to calm children down.
This was
We
shot
showed
on
the
half-inch.
fascination of model railroading in a segment we produced on the Columbia Gorge Model Railroad Club.
As she glides along the woodland through the hills and by the shore, here's the mighty rush of the engine, yeah, that lonesome almost song. You're traveling through the jungles on the Wabash Cannonball.
That was good. Okay, it's all together, Bill. Okay, good.
There are 3 separate divisions of track. Portland to Wishram, the Oregon trunk line between Wishram and Bend, and a complete logging division with steep grades and
If
tight
anybody wants to
turns
stop asking
from the
questions.
mill to the high yard.
We showed the Oregon Senior Theater production finishing touches from rehearsal to 1 year later.
And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and front arms.
Theater company all over 60.
I have read somewhere that in writing a play, anyone can write a first act. It takes a playwright to write a second act, and only a genius can create a good third act. And so it is with life. Our early years are simple. We're cared for, our duties and responsibilities are minimal. Then comes a more complex second stage. We deal with love, family, career, competition, frustration, and the unfulfillment sometimes. We come to grips with reality and compromise. Then comes the most difficult third stage. How many of us really enjoy, grow, live life fully in this third stage? Does the
segment on Oregon's outstanding ombudsman program.
You need to get to be very friendly with them, you need to know the staff, and gradually you get to their confidence. And then they look forward to you coming, and if you don't show up, what has happened? Why didn't you come today?
You are? Hi, Elizabeth, good to see you again. How's everything going? It's fine. Do we have any new patients? We have a new patient I'd like to introduce you today. He's in 107 here. His name is Maurice Kaufman. Would you like to be called Mr. Kaufman or Maurice? He'll probably define his preference for you. We'll start out with Mr. Kaufman. All right, great. Allison, I'd like you to meet. This is Patricia Sherwood. She's our facility ombudsman. Hi, Maurice. Maurice Kaufman. It's nice to know you.
We never come at the same time. We're there sometimes in the morning, sometimes late at night, sometimes at noontime. We're there at meals for some things, making the beds. Is there water available? Are their beds made? Are they cleaned?
Okay? And if there's anything that we can do to help, that's what we're here for. You've got some real nice people to work with you here, and you've got a nice place. We're real proud of this place.
I am too.
Good.
We produced a public service announcement on the SSI program.
Oh, hi, Bernie. It's nice to see you. Aren't things expensive these days? They really are. I don't know how I'm going to make my money stretch this month. Well, you know there's a program, SSI. SSI? What's that? If you just don't have enough income to get by each month, there's Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, which can provide you some extra cash each month. In order to qualify, you must be at least 65 years of age, or blind or disabled, and meet certain income requirements.
Congress passed the SSI law to help people with low income. But almost half of the people who are eligible to receive benefits have never applied for them. You could qualify for these benefits and receive free medical care as well.
If you or someone you know wants to know more about Supplemental Security Income, SSI, you can call Aging Services Division 248-3646.
We produced a special for the Oregon Art Institute in honor of curator Rachel Griffin.
He was kind of a den mother. I came in 1954, the fall of 1954, as a young man, pretty well straight out of college. Very soon it became obvious to me that when anything was said about the museum, or it was Rachel who's provided the voice. If I wanted to know what the soul, what was animating the museum was all about, it was to Rachel that I went.
We produced a report on the Conference on Minority Elderly.
So minority older people are many of us in the near or distant future. The minority older people are many of us in the near or distant future. We are no more or less than the society will support us in becoming, or no greater than our dreams and our aspirations. It is all of us that will pull together to make the future the best that it can be for the less of us. Thank you very much.
This is a portrait of the Lake Oswego Adult Community Center.
It's an Italian song.
Our lunch program is very popular. We serve a hot, tasty, nutritious meal each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noontime. It's a wonderful place to meet new friends and a great way to inexpensively entertain a friend. This program is run by Welcome Break, a volunteer-operated, non-profit organization made up of people from the community. It operates solely on donations. Volunteer teams from churches, local service clubs, and groups from within the center itself come in and help prepare the meal, serve it, and help with the cleanup. Welcome Break provides a wonderful service of good food and a great opportunity for fellowship.
Agewise documented the steps to form a neighbor watch group.
I think Neighborhood Watch would, it's really good because it's going to bring us closer together as neighbors. Because I think in the past, as generations have gone, all our gaps, everybody's too busy in their own little world. The privacy, like the policeman talked about, has happened, and now it's better to get everybody together and kind of be more close. And who cares if we're nosy? We're all neighbors.
It's okay to be a nosy neighbor. Here is the One More Time Around Again marching band.
Do you have competition for the use of
Probably the oldest living marching act
We have our
that's
own.
on through the United States.
Cut down a little bit. At first, Melinda and I were out with the crews all the time and did a lot of the shooting and a lot of the editing. Now, most of it is done with our by our volunteers. But we go out occasionally to help, but stand back for the most part. Just more there to
You
troubleshoot.
referred to a van, to borrowing a van?
We have done that once.
You don't have your own?
No. Oh, that's $100,000. There's our split screen effect with a half-inch camera and a three-quarter.
Welcome to Agewise. Today we're going to talk about fitness, not the pain and strain kind that you might think, but the people we have really wanting to enjoy what you're doing and make the most of what you've got, mentally and physically. Let's see.
This is where we're learning about white balancing. We covered the senior prom this year and then this fall, which is held in a downtown square. Yeah. No, it's near the center of town, Pioneer.
Good job, okay. The next one of them.
Personal appearance was the concern of a segment on hair care with Arvin Eby.
Is going to show us some things that a man can do to regulate his hair and make it look much better groomed.
Most important with Frank is that he has a curl that wants to turn out. He does have the thinned area on top. So what we're going to try to do to make him look less like the Flying Nun, we're going to just bend it in. We pull and bend in. Now Frank can also do this when he washes his hair and take the comb and bend the hair under.
He's one
Lois
of the people that's gone on
is
from our
beginning
group
to
and
get
has worked
gray,
and works
and
as a
so
studio
we keep her
assistant in
with
an
an
access center.
ashen rinse, we call it flush down.
Ken, in cooperation with Agewise, has spent most of this past year adding subtitles for the hearing impaired to his 6-part series beginning watercolors.
In the past, I have been a classroom volunteer at the Washington State School for the Deaf as helping in the art department. And I become aware of the special needs of the hearing impaired and thought that this might be something that I could contribute.
Now, you did some special adaptations of your own technique in your teaching.
Oh, I think you have reference to me painting upside down. It really isn't all that complicated, but it allows, when I was doing demonstrations in the schools, I found that when I turned my back, well, they'd start throwing erasers and things, so I wanted to keep an eye on them. And so I found that I could pull my paper in front of me and paint upside down. And it allowed me to answer any questions that the school children would have.
So we have our painting, the bright yellow sunshine sky, the fall colors in the tree, bright colors reflected into the front of the barn, and the bright yellow grassy field down below.
Agewise volunteer Mary Lockridge entertained the public at a peanut butter and jam concert in Pioneer Square. Agewise provided the only complete media coverage of both the 1988 and the 1990 Governor's Conference on Aging. Our report, distributed statewide, gave seniors complete description of the legislative priorities and how they were decided.
Perfect, but as you can see, the balloons are here and all sorts of, I know there's songs coming up and cheers and chants and a lot of cajoling and buttons. That's all what we want you to do. Remember that out of the issue groups, we will have 22 very important concepts. We know you have worked hard in your own issue group, and you probably know your issues, and that's the time for you to be selling your issues, to get people to understand what those concepts are, to understand why you didn't do something else, to lobby, to influence, and to basically be excited about what your issues will come up with.
Agewise volunteer Rod Barrows produced the Agewise Valentine program.
Was there any taping at Great
Ava
Falls?
Williams will be 78 on the 4th of March this year. I haven't known her very long, and we have been performing together for very long, but I fell in love with her the first time we did get together. I've written a song about Ava to introduce her, and I'd like to do that for you now.
And Rod was one of our volunteers. He actually worked with us as a pig worker and was paid through the senior
Ava Williams, sweeter than trillions, brighter than northern lights. Like Lottie Lania, she'll entertain you for one of those Ava nights. Each time you crave a trip to see Ava, I know you'll enjoy the flights. Just order a neat belt, fasten your seatbelt for one of those Ava nights.
Roundtable discussions, not TV shouting matches, are part of Agewise programming.
First of all, Francis, let's deal with the
a question of being single and dating again.
How many cameras?
What about that?
Being single and dating again is a big question that I hear a lot, Kay, and I have yet to find really the perfect answer, because, but the first thing I have to tell you is perfectly honest, and that is, when I was 16, nobody was beating down the door. So when I'm 66, I don't know why I think there'd be all these people, you know, yapping around.
But the rules have changed. The rules of dating.
That's right. But I have found that I am much more relaxed in the way I think about being with men. And have found that there's an opening up of our social mores that makes it more easy for a woman to feel like she can be comfortable making, say, the first move.
Do Not Go Gentle is a major Agewise project. This 5-part series is on the images and ideas of aging. It investigates how media's negative portrayal of the elderly leads to ageism and suggests ways for us to rethink our concept of what it means to grow old.
In conclusion, Dr. Woodward and poet William Stafford return us to the essential questions.
It's that understanding aging and inventing ways of being old in America really has to be a partnership among the generations. It really has to be an affectionate partnership across the spectrum of the generations. On a pragmatic level, for example, that means involving, as a woman I just met yesterday, Ruth Curie, explained eloquently to me, it means involving younger women, for example, in older women's projects, in, for example, the Older Women's League. As she said, we shouldn't wait until we're older to become involved in what is, for all of us, a very important issue.
We, the older people, are suffering not from a particular problem in our society, but we are participating in our society's tendency to be violent, to do put-downs, to be aggressive, and to build somehow, by means of ads, images that put us in the right light. That's part of it. One of the things I wanted to do was just tick off a few things that occurred to me before I experienced the program. And then I'm done looking for interchange and whatever goes on. Do stereotypes ever help? Do we want to give up our reserved seat on the bus? I just want to raise that question. If there aren't any indications of age, how can anyone tell if we're old? Are there prejudices we ought to have? Just things to talk about. Are we putting groups into their cages when we say the young can't understand the old, advertisers are insensitive? Would those be stereotypes? Should we want to know people to know how we really are? Would that help us? Would that help them? Would it hurt their morale? Might wisdom be too much of a burden for the young? If we achieved what we seem to be after here, might respect become reverence, become burdensome? I'm still thinking about the reserved seat on the bus.
So that's a very abbreviated view of our first 100 programs. Along the way, we wrote a book and we received 3 national awards. The first was from the Retirement Research Foundation. They gave us their award for community programming, and we were the first non-commercial producer to receive this award. Then, the National Federation of Local Cable Programmers gave us their award for a series produced by seniors in the professional category. We repeated this again in the 1990. We have been nominated for this award again in 1991. Let's hope we make it 3 in a row. As Kay Borland said earlier, won't you join us for the fun? Won't you help us produce the next 100 programs? Please get in touch.
All it takes is time and effort and a lot of patience.
Which tape was Stafford in?
He was in the Bridging the Gap. No, he was in this one. Actually, that's a good one too, because it doesn't have the copyright. It just replayed some material. Our music was recorded by a local group, senior orchestra, Carol Long. So that's the kind of things that can happen. And it's a lot.
Are you in competition at all with any of the college programs?
No.
Are they assisting at all? Is it two separate worlds?
Well, unfortunately, Oregon has eliminated all its college programs in video. They have a couple in a couple of community colleges, but the Oregon State, University of Oregon, and Portland State have all eliminated it. They have budget cuts.
Well, budget cuts along with a
And
willingness to take.
you know, they kept golf, but they've gone so far as to eliminate the philosophy major at Portland State University, if you can believe it.
Oh, that's
Major state
terrible.
university with no philosophy major. It's
First
really,
things first, you know.
I gotta cut property taxes. But there's, you know, we see ourselves as somewhat of a model of how groups of seniors can serve the community and use our skills and talents in public access. And you mentioned it there briefly, but the National Federation of Local Cable Programmers has started special interest groups. And one of them is senior producers, and I've got about 100 names on my list so far around the country. There's lots of senior programming that's growing up around access centers. I think it's a growing movement, and because it works. I mean, that's what it comes down to, and it's worth it. Access centers encouraging people who are working with nonprofits to look to seniors to help them do the crewing, and to seniors themselves. One of the statements out of that is, if we don't tell our own stories, who will speak for us? And I think one of the fundamental things about access is we've got to speak for ourselves, and that, I think, puts the value of access is people speaking for themselves. And so I'm not, in some ways, that comfortable by doing programming for other groups, but on the other hand, it needs to be done. We've got a new theme. One of our main producers put his granddaughter to bed one night and cleared the toys off the bed, and one of them was a little toy globe. The little girl said when he picked it up, "Grandmother, what are you doing with my world?" And gets me every time I tell the story. I think that's the question we all ask, is what are we doing with our world? I think we've got to come up with some good answers to it.
Now, right away.
And so this is one way of doing it.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of senior bashing that goes on from time to time around the country, and most of it's misinformation.
Oh, it's going to get worse. I mean, the more of us there are, the worse it's going to get. Don't think that because there are more of us, there's going to be less senior bashing. It's on the way. It really is. And
a lot of these seniors are putting a lot back into the community.
You betcha.
Volunteer.
Tom, I think the most valuable thing you gave me is the notion of talking about video as recreation. That I think I can do something with that. Because communication, let them figure that out after they start to have fun, right? And that approach is much less intimidating.
Okay, well,
Well, he started off a young boy who just wanted to be cool. Others who worked hard at school were idiots and fools. You had to prove you were a man by breaking all the rules that they laid down. He was a crutch that you had found. Gotta lay that monkey down, 'cause he wants to bring you down. Gotta lay that monkey down. So you headed west to find yourself in a land of mountain dreams. You sat and watched life pass you by like a blurry movie screen. Surrounded by so many friends, at least that's what they seem. But soon you found you were spinning round and round. Gotta lay that monkey down, 'cause he wants to bring you down. Gotta lay that monkey down. So come on, walk free. There's so much that you've missed out on. Oh, come on with me. I found a road to travel down. You'll find a place where you can face reality. Gotta lay that monkey down. Now you've reached the bottom, and there's nowhere left to turn. No matter what you say or do, it always seems that you get burned. Now you found a mirror that won't lie. Please have you learned, don't hear this sound. You got to stand your ground. Gotta lay that monkey down, 'cause he wants to bring you down. Gotta lay that monkey down. So come on, walk free. There's so much that you missed out on. Well, come on with me. I found a road to travel down. You'll find a place where you can face reality. Gotta lay that monkey down. Well, we kind of lost our electric guitarist there for a minute. You guys will recognize this song, I'm sure.
That's me, right?